From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Fox 8 studios in New Orleans, this is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Fazende, riding shotgun as he does each and every podcast. It's Andre Johnson.
Junior.
Not forget the Junior. Very important, remember the JR at the end of the name. Before we get into today's content, be sure to like, to share, to rate, to review. If you're watching us on YouTube, you know the drill. Hit that subscribe button, get the bell notification. But when we drop that, fire content. Also, hello to the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. Glad you have found us here, and hopefully you didn't just find us here, you stayed here for all the programming that we have on this wonderful brand new network known as the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. It is Wednesday in the city of New Orleans, big day in the NFL in-season mode. It is really the first real day of the new work week. Players are back. They had the day off Tuesday. They start practicing. They start game plan. Well, actually, the game planning has been starting since Monday for the coaches, but they start to, put the game plan onto the field. So it's always a big day. And obviously, Saints trying to bounce back after a tough loss to the Arizona Cardinals. Doesn't get much easier, although it might with a few injuries. We can talk about that on Friday. But they have the San Francisco 49ers coming to town. So that is a big matchup. They're trying to get to 1-1. We'll see what happens. But first things first, how you feeling on this Wednesday?
I'm feeling good. You're not going to believe it because this is rare for me. I woke up at like 8 a.m. this morning. I normally sleep till like 10:30, 11 o'clock, but I woke up at 8 a.m. I was like, oh, this is why people wake up early. You got so much to do, time to do stuff before you go in and really start your day. It was kind of crazy.
My kids are almost 13 and 8. If I woke up at 8 a.m. with the current state of my house right now every day, it would not work out too well. So enjoy it while you have it, my friend, because it all changes once those kids are born. So, all right, well, I'm glad you woke up earlier, got enough sleep. I don't know how it worked, but I'm glad you're here with me right now. Let's talk Saints because, look, there's a lot to talk about. I see if you're with me on this, Andre. I don't feel the devastation from the Week 1 loss. I almost feel the opposite of, we put forth a pretty from the tone from the organization. We put forth a pretty good effort there, so we're encouraged. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting from the team right now.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, this is a team that there's not a lot of expectations for from the outside, and I mean, it came down to the very last play against a good Arizona Cardinals team. The quarterback, we talked about his performance, but he didn't turn the ball over. He handled the pass rush well. There were good points to, Spencer Rattler's game. Your defense played great, and we'll talk about the defense a little later in this episode. Really, the biggest thing is now learning from Week 1 to Week 2, and one of the main guys that needs to learn is the guy who just played his first game as head coach, and that's Kellen Moore. We both gave him grades on how we thought he did in Game 1. You gave him a C. I gave him a D+. But as we go into Game 2 against the San Francisco 49ers, what can Kellen Moore do better after having that Week 1 learning experience so that they can get the win against the Niners?
All right, yeah. First things, look, every offensive play caller will always tell you they could have called a better game. And I don't think he called necessarily a bad game. But if you go look at certain spots, certain concepts they use in certain situations, there were opportunities for better play calling in certain situations. There were opportunities to emphasize certain things, particularly in the second half, that were not. I'm talking about the run game. I know the execution wasn't as good, and I know the Cardinals made the adjustment. I just felt like that was abandoned too quickly. So that's one. But I think if you lose a game and you score 13 points, that's always something you can point to. The big thing for me is game management.
Right.
We've chalked the initial game management up to a rookie mistake. You only get a few of those your rookie year, and you can't have it back-to-back weeks. You can't have it back-to-back weeks. We've talked about the first half scenario where they decided to bleed the clock or let the clock run down, regardless of if the Cardinals scored or not, because they were in fear of when they got the ball back, leaving too much time for the Cardinals because they had 3 timeouts. Really, probably indirectly, I don't know if he meant to do this, but it certainly feels like to us it showed a lack of faith in a young quarterback by not expecting with 1:40 and a timeout left for him to go down the field and execute a 2-minute drill and get some points before halftime. And then you get the advantage of getting the ball back, obviously, to start the second half. Hopefully that has changed, and he suggested at his Monday press conference that if that situation came up again, perhaps the outcome may be different. I would say, based off the way Rattler finished that game in a 2-minute situation, hopefully he has now crossed that bar to where you can now trust him in those situations. Because, Andre, I know you had a deep quarterback competition. I know these are two relatively inexperienced guys. But if you're going to pick a guy, you got to trust a guy. And whether or not he meant to do it or not, it showed a lack of trust in Spencer Rattler in that situation. To me, he's got to get over that, because if you're going to start him, you got to be able to play him in situations, because this game is about situational football. This is not college where it's best talent wins. This is NFL where situational football and winning certain situations is really what it's all about. So that's number 2 on my list, but it's probably the biggest in terms of where he needs to grow from game 1 to game 2. Number 2 or number 3, however you want to put my list here, got to find some explosives. I know you're getting a lot of shell coverage, or you were getting a lot of shell coverage. The Cardinals decided against blitzing as much and decided to play more coverage on the back end. When I say find explosives, I don't mean running deep post and deep 9 routes and go routes every play. That's not what I mean. In fact, even explosive offenses, they don't do that every play. If you really track it down, those type of throws are 5, 6, 7, 8 throws a game at the absolute most. I think there was only, you can call it 1 really, with the Rashid Shaheed throw, where you can call it that. But where I do think there is an area to grow from an explosive standpoint is the intermediate, the second level. There's the over routes, there's the deep sail routes, there's the in-breaking dig routes, there's the square ins, there's the seam routes, which he called a few of those. Spencer executed one perfectly to Juwan Johnson on that final drive, and almost got another one, obviously, on the second to last play of the game, but it didn't work. Obviously, wasn't able to come down with it. But if you can really hone in on that second level, regardless if they're playing shell or they're playing press, I think that's where you can find some chunk plays, not just 8 yards here, 6 yards there, 7-yard completion here, 5-yard hook there, quick out here. I think there is an opportunity for him to find some explosives at the second level. And if you go back and watch San Francisco, you may get an opportunity to do so against San Francisco. With the way they run their scheme and the way they trust their secondary in certain scenarios, there may be an opportunity for some big plays against San Francisco. Finally, discipline. This team cannot have double-digit penalties 2 games in a row. That would be a horrible look for a young head coach, for a team finding their way, a head coach building culture, to have another game where they're sloppy from a discipline standpoint. Discipline is a direct reflection of the coaching staff, because it's what you allow and what you tolerate. There needs to be a very strong message sent by practice on Wednesday. That is unacceptable. Kellen Moore needs to verbalize that, and then it needs to go to the leaders, and the leaders need to verbalize that again, and that needs to be hammered home all week. You can be terrible on Sunday. You don't have to be undisciplined. I think that's obviously a huge one for Kellen Moore, where he can improve. And just a quick personnel thing that I think you're going to see, and it needs to happen. There needs to be more Devon Vele on the field, because he's a big body. He can make contested catches. Right now, the Saints don't have a guy that can truly win against press man coverage. They got a guy that can run by him in Shaheed, and if the route is correct with Chris Olave, and if you can get off the jam, you can sometimes create separation. But a big body receiver and tight press man coverage, you're going to need that at some point throughout the season for sure. But I think I'd like to see it start on Sunday against the 49ers. So that's where I'm at with it. That's where I believe Kellen Moore can improve the most.
And to touch on that last point, the Devon Vele point, there were a lot of people when we were talking about, the Saints need a bigger receiver, they need a bigger receiver. Some people were like, why? Why do you need that? There's a play in that game. The only real play that counted, because the deep throw to Shaheed in the end zone that got picked off didn't count. He made another deeper pass to Shaheed on the right side of the field, back of the end zone. It was a pretty well-thrown ball by Spencer Rattler. It was tight coverage, good play by the defense. Shaheed couldn't come down with it. Shaheed's about 6 feet tall. You put a guy who's 6'5" in that same situation, you make that same throw, you put it on the top shelf where the kids can't reach it, so to speak. I think that might result in a touchdown. So Devon Vele, especially in those red zone, end zone situations, I think would be a big tool for the Saints, and I'd like to see him out there more. But to talk about what Kellen Moore can do better, you talked about the discipline. That's obvious. We chalked that one up to a rookie mistake, the timeout situation, the penalties. Okay, cool. These are the things I can't chalk up to a rookie mistake, and that's the play calling. This may be Kellen Moore's first year as a head coach. It is not his first year as a play caller. He was calling plays in Dallas. He called plays in L.A. He called plays in Philadelphia. He is calling plays in New Orleans. He has been designing game plans, calling plays, doing the whole punch-counter-punch thing for a long time now. Running the ball, that was the key. That's my number one key to the game in every game for the Saints. They did that in the first half, not counting Spencer Rattler's runs. I'm talking about just running backs. 14 carries for 78 yards in the first half. Second half, 8 carries, 11 yards.
Say it again.
14 carries for 78 yards in the first half. Second half, 8 carries for 11 yards, not counting Spencer Rattler's rushing. I'm talking about the running backs. That can't happen when you've got a team that is based around running the football. And it's not like the run wasn't working. It's one thing where you're like, okay, well, we're trying to run the ball and it's just not working. It worked in the first half. Alvin Kamara was very effective. Alvin Kamara, by the way, who only had 13 touches. Even if you only give him 11 carries, that's one thing. But he's arguably your most dynamic option in the passing game too, and I just don't think there were enough plays drawn up for Alvin Kamara, the wheel routes, the angle routes, even situations that we saw in training camp of them moving Alvin Kamara out the backfield and lining him up out wide in the slot sometimes. Like, I just feel like there's so much untapped potential for Alvin Kamara, and we really didn't see that game one. And if we saw more of that game one, I mean, it comes down to putting the ball in the hands of your best player. There's no doubt that the best player on offense right now is Alvin Kamara. He didn't get the ball enough in that game, a game where you scored 13 points because your best player got 13 touches. So I want to see more Alvin Kamara in the game. Obviously, I don't want him to get 30. Christian McCaffrey got 31 touches last week. I don't need that. Let's get closer to 20, 21, 22.
Around 20, yep.
And I think that's a good spot for Alvin Kamara. So that's the one thing I think Kellen Moore can do better going into week 2. The second thing, you kind of touched on it as well. I need more aggressive play calling. And let me tell the Rat Pack right now, this is not a dig on Spencer Rattler. Every time I say his name, some people think I'm hating on the guy. This is actually, if anything, a compliment. Kellen Moore chose Spencer Rattler as his quarterback. If you are going to choose Spencer Rattler as your quarterback, that's the guy you wanted, you have to give him a chance. The guy attempted 46 passes, and about 80% of them were 10 yards and under. You picked this guy. You have to give him an opportunity to show his skill set. And it's putting him in a box if you're not letting him throw the ball down the field. Now, Spencer Rattler's deep ball has left a lot to be desired over the last few years, but you can't just not throw it.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to be able to stretch the field. Like you said, the intermediate passes, the deep passes, you don't need to throw 20 of them a game, but you need to keep the defense honest. Derek Carr, a quarterback that not a lot of people liked when he was here in New Orleans. But at the end of the day, when he needed to stretch the field, when he needed to hit that deep shot to Rashid Shaheed because the defense was stacking the box on Kamara or they were watching the short options, he needed to stretch the field. Derek Carr was able to do that. I need to see Spencer Rattler be able to stretch the field. And I'm not saying he can't stretch the field. I'm saying Kellen Moore's not even giving him a real opportunity
I would agree.
to. To me, if you're Kellen Moore, if Spencer Rattler is capable of doing that, and if you don't think he's capable of doing that, why is he in the game? Then you need to let him do that because it's not only hurting him and the perception around him, it's hurting your offense. And if he's incapable of stretching the field, why is he in the game?
Right.
You chose this guy. You got to give him an opportunity to show his entire skill set. And I think he showed, I don't want to say the efficiency, but the ability to protect the ball with these short passes.
He avoided the big mistake.
He did. He did avoid the big mistake. He didn't lose them the game. But he didn't exactly go out there and win it for him either. Some of that's on him, but some of that is also on the play calling by Kellen Moore. So I need Kellen Moore to open up that playbook a little bit, get a little aggressive. This is the guy you picked. This is your guy, Spencer Rattler. Let him cook. And if he can't cook, get him out the kitchen.
But that's just it. I mean, you're in sort of a fortunate situation. Doesn't this kind of feel like a redshirt year for a lot of people inside the organization?
Does, yeah.
It does kind of feel like, okay, if you make the mistakes now, there's somewhat of a tolerance for it that probably is not going to be there past this year. So if you're going to have that sort of grace period, if you will, take full advantage by taking full advantage of what you feel like the players on the field can do at their best. And if you don't feel like Spencer Rattler can do that at his best, you have the fortunate situation. You could turn to the guy I drafted with Tyler Shuck at the 40th overall pick. So hopefully he can learn from that because if it doesn't work with Rattler and they lose the game or he does not respond well, A, you have the option to Shuck, and B, you're not going to necessarily get killed for that because of where we're at in the state of the Kellen Moore era. You mentioned something about the big play, 50-50 guy, big receiver. That throw you're referencing, Will Johnson makes a great play. Rattler has to understand that situation, put it at that back pylon, let Shaheed go run under it and get it. Because if you try to throw up 50-50 ball, he might come down with it, but he's smaller than that DB, and he's not going to high point it and bring it down. It's just not going to happen. So that was a little bit of a situation where if you get that situation again, put it in the back pylon, let Shaheed run under it because that's what he's best at. So yeah, I think all things being considered, Kellen Moore can take significant steps from week 1 to week 2. And hopefully he does so, because I think you made a good point when you said he is a new head coach. And so for the time management stuff, I think he's going to work through that. I think maybe some personnel issues, he's going to work through that. But I've always said the thing he's going to fall back on, the easiest thing for him to do, it's going to be like muscle memory, is him calling plays on game day. Yeah. And I felt like in that regard, his strength, he can do better next week or this week against the 49ers.
Absolutely. And you mentioned it kind of being a redshirt year, a year to try things for a lot of players on the team, for the Kellen Moores, for the Brandon Staleys and everything. Two people who it's not a redshirt year for, which is why it's even more important for Kellen Moore to give them an opportunity to cook, especially the one that's starting right now, is Spencer Rattler. Mm-hmm. Spencer Rattler doesn't get a redshirt year. Spencer Rattler has this season to prove I am able to be a competent starter for the New Orleans Saints, or I need to be replaced. He's a 5th-round pick. They don't have a whole lot invested in Spencer Rattler. They need to see if he can play. You're not going to see if he can play if he's dinking and dunking the whole game, going, 26 for 46, whatever it was. Tyler Shuck, if he ever gets in the game, you need to see if he can play, because you predicted the Saints to go 6-11. And that was with them beating the Cardinals.
Yeah, right.
I predicted them to go 4-13. If you've got either one of those records, you're in the market for a quarterback very high in the draft. The only way you're not picking a quarterback very high in the draft is if you think you've got one on this roster. So Kellen Moore needs to take the training wheels off Spencer Rattler, let him do what he does, throw the ball down the field, do what he excels in. If he's good, great. That's one less problem you have. If he's not good,
you got your 2nd-round pick.
Exactly. You even got a fallback plan. So I say let Spencer Rattler cook. So a lot to be desired from Kellen Moore from week 1 to week 2. But one coach who did a really good job Sunday, who to me is being underappreciated in if anything. I have this bowling league on Monday that I go to. A lot of Saints fans, so I'm always talking, Saints and everything. A lot of people were more critical of the defense than they were the offense after week 1. I thought Brandon Staley called a really good game. What were your impressions?
Yeah, and this is one of those things where if you get meticulous with tape, like I do, and I have a problem because I go way too far into it. I'm like 3 days into watching everything over again. If you really get into the meticulous nature of grinding tape, you really come away impressed with Brandon Staley. In fact, he called a much better game on defense than Kellen Moore did on offense. I mean, I know there was the drive before halftime. Look, they have them. They got the right play call down on 3rd and 10. Justin Reed's a little late on the drop down on the cover 3, and he allows McBride to catch it and run. There's another 3rd down late in the at their own 5-yard line where you get the ball back. You got to get the great field position. Again, they got the right play call in. Ike got him, slips and falls on the play, and Marvin Harrison gets the 1st down. So it really boiled down to a couple of mistakes on 3rd down. But if you actually watch the way he called the game, the way he mixed up coverages, the way he mixed up fronts, the way he simulated pressure, the way he brought pressure, I thought Brandon Staley was phenomenal. Was phenomenal. And it's something very unique because not unique, but it's new to us because we're so used to defense being a certain way. And so to see a totally different approach and a totally different look on that side of the ball was very impressive. His best call was the last call, his last call of the game. You'll see it on Game Plan on Wednesday night and then possibly on Tailgate Sunday. I broke down the last play call where, they sneak in an Alontae Taylor blitz, but it's not an all-out blitz because Alontae's coming off the nickel. There's 2 guys coming off the edge, and the 3 guys in the middle. There's Brzee, and I think it was Nathan Shepard, and then there's Demario Davis, who's showing blitz, but he actually ends up being the spy. They drop out, taking away the mesh concept, and look, it was Kellen Moore never saw Alontae Taylor coming. It was the perfect call. I think he blitzed one other time in the game. They showed the illusion, but it wasn't an illusion. They showed man coverage, but they were dropping two guys out to the spot where he wanted to throw the ball. It was a phenomenal play call and a phenomenal execution by the Saints defense. So I will go back to my original point. After 1 week of play, I told you this. I believe the Saints defense is on solid footing with Brandon Staley. I believe the foundation is there for them to be a top half defense in the league. They got a little leaky with rushing yardage. A lot of that was one play, but still it counts. However, I like the start to Brandon Staley's defensive era here in New Orleans, and I expect him to be just as good this week against San Francisco, regardless of who is playing quarterback. So job well done, in my opinion, Brandon Staley.
I think that Brandon Staley and the defense did a lot of the things that you would have wanted them to do going into that game. I mean, number one, they didn't miss Chase Young. Cameron Jordan did a phenomenal job filling in for Chase Young in that game. Got a sack, I think a sack and a half technically on the final stat sheet. They contained Kyler Murray relatively well. Seeing how Kyler has beaten a lot of people with their legs, they were able to contain him for the most part. Even when he scrambled, it was mostly for short gains. They stopped the run, minus that big 50-yarder by the Arizona Cardinals backup running back. He broke that loose, but other than that, they did a pretty good job keeping James Conner under wraps. And most importantly, he made incredible second-half adjustments. You can say in that first half, oh, the defense gets beat deep by Marvin Harrison Jr. They get the long run. You know, they allow 2 touchdowns. But in the second half, it was locked down by that defense. The defense, when they needed to make stops so that the offense could get back into the game, they made stop after stop after stop. They forced turnover on downs. They were put in difficult positions at times, but they came through. It was the offense that didn't come through to tie the game or potentially take the lead. So I think Brandon Staley did a good job in his first game here in New Orleans as defensive coordinator. I'm curious to see where it goes now, because one player that was all over the field in week 1, Julian Blackmon. And now Julian Blackmon's going to be out for the season, it seems, with a labrum injury. And I don't know if they have the depth at safety to replace that. Obviously, Jordan Howden was dealing with injuries in the first week. You've got Jonas Sanker, the rookie, who had a good preseason, but is it maybe a little too early to throw him into that deep water? Is he going to be able to swim? I don't know if he'll have much of a choice, because I'd probably rather Sanker out there than Jordan Howden. But, you know, I think we'll learn a lot about Staley and this defense as we head into week 2.
Yeah, I think another name on the practice squad is Burgess, who could be elevated, a veteran guy that could come in and step in and possibly play. I know Justin Reed has really played well off of, Blackman's skill set, because of Justin Reed, loves to come down and really he likes to be that heat-seeking missile, make plays, make hard tackles, that sort of thing. Whereas Blackman really played the deep half well, or the deep middle well. So was that more of a Howden skill set? Is that more of a Sanker skill set? Do you look what you have in Burgess to see if he could possibly do something? So personnel-wise, he's going to be challenged this week without one of his favorite players. Brandon Staley loved Julian Blackman. I think that was pretty obvious. I think Julian even told us that he had been waiting to coach him for a long time because of that skill set. And Blackman, so crazy. He nearly has a pick in the game.
Yep. I
go back and check. I'm like, man, I don't remember at all anything about him leaving the game. Sure enough, I go back and check the stats, the snap counts. He played every snap.
Yeah.
100% of the snaps. He played every snap. It wasn't until he got home after the game where he found, I guess, the adrenaline had worn off, and he must have been having some throbbing pain. Because I know when you have shoulder pain, that can really, really hurt. If it's a torn labrum, I can only imagine. So that's a huge loss for the Saints. And I'm very curious to see if they keep it in-house, maybe initially, but perhaps at some point they look elsewhere. Yeah. And where can they look? Is there a safety lurking around the city of New Orleans right now that could be potentially available? I don't know. Is there one? I don't know. But
has he worn black and gold before?
I believe he has.
Oh, okay.
Is there one available? I don't know. Would he even consider the option? I don't know. But I think for now you'll see something internal, and then we'll see how they adjust without him. So look, that to me, all in all, just big picture with Brandon Staley, he's looking like a good hire. And this is a very unique scheme, and it's a very the way he plays. It's very It's very modern for today's NFL with what they're taking away, forcing teams to have to go long drives. I think that was the difference in the game. Arizona finished a few of those longer drives, while the Saints obviously struggled to finish some of those longer drives. Both defensive coordinators, two young guys that know each other, basically approached the game philosophically the same way. So I expect more of the same from Brandon Staley on Sunday.
Yeah, and he's going to need it because Kyle Shanahan and the Niners coming in, I mean, that's arguably the most creative and dangerous offensive mind in the entire NFL. It's a guy who I'm sure he's very familiar with, so it'll be very interesting to see how they stop the Niners. The Niners dealing with a lot of injuries later today. We'll get, more, and over the next few days, we'll get the injury reports. I know Kittle's out, Jawan Jennings, their wide receiver, dealing with injury. Christian McCaffrey seems to be okay. He took 31 touches in week 1. Yeah. Brock Purdy dealing with a lot of injuries, but this is a game that, when you looked at it on the schedule and you saw the Niners were coming to town week 2, you said, oh man, that could be a tough one. But the way things are shaping out, this might actually be a winnable game if the Saints can clean up some of their offensive mistakes, some of the penalties and undisciplined play, a few of the defensive things that we touched on, and take that into week 2. This could be a winnable game.
It really could, especially if there's injuries at the quarterback position. I was going to do a film study on McCaffrey's receptions.
Yeah.
But there was too many. Like, it would have taken me too long to get it all together, so I had to pivot and do something else. So McCaffrey's still that guy if he's healthy. So we'll see. But Kittle is as important to an offense from a tight end position as anyone because of his dual threat, run blocking, and obviously the ability to catch the passes from the quarterback. And look, you watch that game week 1, early in that game, Kittle is Purdy's safety valve.
Yep.
He is Purdy's safety valve. So they won't have Kittle. We'll see if they have Brock Purdy this week. All of a sudden, this matchup doesn't feel as daunting as it did when you read that schedule out when they first came out, back in May or April, something like that. All right, we got to get out of here. For Andre Johnson Jr., I'm Sean Fazende. We'll catch you guys next time on Overtime.